Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for logging in and joining us virtually this morning for the AZDroneFest Day 1, Session 1, with our first panel of the day, Drone Programs. Today we've got a great program for you guys and a great panel. My name is Riley Beaman. I'm the director of the North Carolina Public Safety Drone Academy here in North Carolina. And our panel is a wealth of knowledge. And again, our topic, drone programs. So our panel consists of Captain Vern Sallee, who is with the famed Chula Vista Police Department UAS program, the originator of that program, and now with Axon Air. Mr. Fred Judson, who is Ohio Unmanned Aircraft Systems, Ohio Department of Transportation, with a wealth of knowledge for their state and how they have started their UAS program and things that are going on within the state. We've got Bryan McKernan, who is Consortiq Global, also a Marine Corps helicopter pilot, Naval Flight School instructor for fixed wing, and of course with Consortiq training and standards, and he'll be weighing in on the panel for training and standards and what's going on. And then last but not least, rounding out the panel, we've got Mr. Ben Spain, North Carolina DOT program manager, and also has worked with Precision Hawk, and also Air Force, U.S. Air Force C-130 pilot and instructor as far as that goes. So we have a wealth of knowledge on this. And because we only have an hour, we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, programs, drone programs, UAS programs, and how they look and how to get them started. And what we're going to do is go through some of the trials and tribulations these guys have seen in setting up successful programs. So we'll get started. And this question is going to go to both Fred and Ben. With state UAS programs, you guys have seen an influx of different things from public safety, natural disasters, laws, rules, regulations, the whole gambit. How did that look when setting up a program for both of your states? How does that look? That's just a complex situation and thing to roll out. What were some of the things that you did to begin with to go ahead and establish that successful UAS program in both your states? And I will let Fred lead off.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so starting out, it was it's really small unmanned aircraft because they are easy to operate. It's hard to get people that are non-aviation into an aviation mindset, and part of that's navigating like the regulatory environment as well. So the UAS Center event started in 2013, and we were going for a designation for an FAA test center. So while we didn't get the FAA designation, we turned inward into the state and helped out all the local and state agencies in Ohio. And it really was, we're the lead for the state for unmanned aircraft systems. So we helped out a lot of our local police and Department of Public Safety in starting their programs. And a lot of it was helping them, educating them, trying to get them to become aviators, to understand, putting an aircraft into the national airspace system is a serious thing, even if these things are small. But making them realize that they're now, back in 2013, there wasn't really a rule set to follow. It was more of a prohibition on aircraft operations unless you're going through the public certificate of authorization. But it's getting them educated to what they couldn't do and how do they do it. A lot of times we would get, their waivers for nighttime. We would help them through that. We would help them with their training programs. I can't emphasize enough how important training programs are. Having standard operating procedures in place, making sure that everybody follows, those guidelines that are developed. But once that happens and you have a system put together, that in of itself is an assurance that you're going to be able to operate. And our mission was to have them operate and increase their chances of a successful mission. And that's really what it comes down to. So standard operating procedures, training, education, and those are the key areas that need to be focused on when you're starting your program up.
Thank you. Ben, what about North Carolina? How is North Carolina with the same starting that program?
Yeah, thank you, Riley. And I'll just add, I only joined North Carolina DOT back in July, so most of what I'm talking about is work other people have done. Um, but really, it seems, from my perspective, that our program really caught on fire, if you will, when Hurricane Florence hit back in 2018. We got a lot of news coverage for that, and it got a lot of people excited that we were able to have a strong UAS response and get lots of good photos to help with the emergency response to that. But when you think about it, that kind of response for a DOT is really kind of an ancillary function, right? Like hurricanes aren't happening every day all year. And so in the past few months, we've been trying to focus in on things that are almost mundane and boring, because that's where I kind of find the success of the program will really lie. And that's kind of, it's kind of hard because so many people are so excited. Everybody can think of a way that a drone can help them in their job, or most people can. And so I found that kind of hard, like, okay, no, we're just going to focus on these few things that we can do across the state that are simple, kind of going into what Fred's talking about, and that we can teach pretty much anybody to do them, right? Making it accessible. And yeah, so starting there with kind of the boring and mundane, and my goal, it really is for it just to become another tool that folks are using, and that it's not, although it is super exciting, I kind of want it to get to the point where it's not as exciting, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just using a drone today because that's, part of my job, and that's what I'm doing.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate that, and again, trial by fire, we're just throwing Ben right in. I did not mention that he is new to the program, but he is definitely being tossed right in at the state level, and doing a great job so far. So we do appreciate that, Ben.
Yeah, well, thank you. And something else I've seen, I saw this at Precision Hawk, and I see it again here in DOT, is setting realistic expectations while not crushing that excitement. Just yesterday, or last week, I was fielding calls about flying bridges and inspecting bridges, and we had a division very excited. And then every bridge they sent me was over an interstate. I'm like, well, we can't fly those bridges, but let's not crush your dreams. and let's find a way, to do this and still get you involved. And let's see what we can do right now while we work towards, and with the FAA towards, getting ops over people going and things like that. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Now we're going to turn just a little bit and focus more on an emergency service level with Captain Sallee. And I say this, the Chula Vista Police Department fire, you guys with UAS are really world renowned for some of the things that you've done and started. How did this differ? I know much different from a state level, but what were some of the things that you guys had to take into consideration from an emergency service standpoint, starting such a successful UAS program?
Sure. Thank you so much, Riley. So the first thing, we started our drone program back in 2016. I was the captain in charge of support operations and technology, and our SWAT team, wanted to start to get into the drone space. So we kind of looked at the landscape and what agencies were doing well and what agencies weren't doing well. And really, a lot of police agencies were not doing well with regard to public outreach and transparency, right? And so if you think about police agencies, they're pretty opaque. The people think secrecy. It's kind of a mysterious job, and so people would think, well, what do they want to do with those drones? Are they going to loiter over my backyard and look in my windows and things like that? The reality is for 50 years or so, there have been manned helicopters in policing. There's policies, procedures for privacy and civil rights. So we just had to find a path to explain that to the public. So we started out not by buying drones, but by actually researching best practices, looking at the civil rights landscape, the privacy landscape, reading ACLU white papers and their policy statements on police use of drones before we ever started going into the drone space. And then we figured out, what do we want to do with a drone? What's the right drone for that? Build policy around that, and then tell a story to the public. Go to city council, go to our chiefs advisory committee, hold public forums. We did all those things over about a year before we ever started any type of operation. And by doing that front end work, investing in the community, explaining Things as simple as what we're going to do with the drone, but more importantly, what we're not going to do with the drone. We're not going to randomly patrol. We're not going to surveil people absent like an emergency, exigent circumstances. We're not going to arm our drones. So telling that story as to what you will or will not do with it, allowing input into policy is important. And then the public understands that. And especially once you start getting a few successful missions under your belt and people actually see the life-saving technology that's behind drones. So I like to say we invested in our community before we ever invested in the first drone. And then it went fairly slowly because we did the crawl, walk, run. I will throw down. I'm in the company of some of great minds in aviation here. I'm just a cop, right? And I've had to learn everything that I know about drones in the last 4 years, and I have a lot more to learn. And so I really appreciate forums like this with experts such as yourself and the Arizona Drone Fest, because it helps that continuing education, because it really is an evolving landscape right under our feet. And that's a really big deal. We were really privileged to be selected as part of the FAA's IPP program back in 2018. And that's really our drone as a first responder program is really what kind of put our name on the map. A peer captain of mine came up with the concept, and he retired and left it in my lap. And then I essentially kind of led what it looked like. And as of last week, when I retired from Chula Vista after 25 years, we had, I think, 3,700 missions that we've flown. And it's just an absolute game changer for policing. And when you think about the need for de-escalation, the need for real-time intelligence, the need for police to have the right tools and information so that they can get the best outcome on any given call, it's more important today than it's ever been. And so drones are life-changing. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's how we got started and where Chula Vista is as of last week and today.
Thank you, Kevin.